What if I told you a new class of drugs is not only changing how we treat obesity and diabetes, but also how we eat, shop, and even age? That's exactly what's happening with GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound. These aren't just weight loss drugs anymore, they're at the center of a global transformation across health, consumer behavior, and biotech investing. Analysts now project a $150 billion global obesity treatment market, one of the largest new markets in modern healthcare. But will it actually get there? And what does it mean for everyone else? Let's start with the big picture. Just a few years ago, analysts were modeling an $80 billion total addressable market for obesity drugs. That rose to $105 billion by early 2024. And now? The latest base case calls for $150 billion, $80 billion from the US, and another $70 billion from international markets. This step up comes from a deeper understanding of how fast adoption could spread outside the US, especially in countries like China, Japan, and Brazil. In fact, some analysts argue that even this estimate might be conservative, depending on how new studies and future drugs play out. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't headwinds. Over the last 6 months, GLP-1 makers have seen some turbulence. Sales growth for Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk came in below market expectations in late 2024, and Novo's next-generation therapy, CagriSema, failed to show stronger results than existing drugs like Zepbound. That raised some eyebrows among investors. But from a long-term perspective, analysts don't see these as major threats. Instead, they're focusing on 5 key catalysts that will drive what they call the broadening of the GLP-1 market. So what is this broadening exactly? It refers to the shift from early adopters, mainly Americans with insurance and access, to a truly global expansion in usage. Right now, only about 2 to 3% of eligible obesity patients in the US are on a GLP-1 drug. Outside the US? Just 1%. The vision is for those rates to reach 20% in the US and 10% internationally by 2035. That may sound ambitious, but when you consider the tools being deployed, better supply, improved insurance coverage, new oral versions of the drugs, broader clinical benefits, and next-gen molecules, the roadmap becomes more believable. Let's dig into each one. First, supply. In 2024, both Novo and Lilly struggled to meet demand, especially for injectable versions. As manufacturing scales and new facilities come online, availability should improve significantly. Second, payer access. Our latest survey of health benefits managers in the US shows a growing number of employers are covering GLP-1s for obesity, not just diabetes, and that number is expected to rise further in 2026. Third, oral drugs. Lilly's orforglipron is among the first in a wave of oral GLP-1s, which could radically expand access by making the treatment easier to take. Then there's the promise of broader clinical benefits. GLP-1s aren't just about weight anymore. In 2024, new data showed potential impacts on sleep apnea, chronic kidney disease, and even early signs of cognitive benefit in Alzheimer's disease. If future studies confirm these effects, it could unlock entirely new indications and revenue streams. That brings us to the 5th catalyst, next-gen molecules. As new versions come to market with improved tolerability, efficacy, or longer dosing intervals, adoption could accelerate across different patient segments. But this isn't just a biotech story. The ripple effects of these drugs stretch far beyond pharma. Take the consumer sector. Roughly 45% of US adults are living with obesity, and 70% are overweight. As more people go on GLP-1s, their behavior shifts, and not just on the scale. According to recent surveys, patients report eating less, shopping differently, and rethinking their wardrobes. Restaurant spending is down, grocery habits are changing, and 2/3 of GLP-1 users say they've refreshed their clothing in the last 6 months. We're already seeing early signs of a structural shift in food, fashion, and lifestyle spending patterns. Now, if this trend continues, it could mean real implications for companies in packaged food, beverages, and retail. Think about it. Lower calorie consumption, less snacking, reduced demand for sugary drinks. It's not just about health, it's about revenue. And these shifts may be more lasting than expected. Interestingly, even lapsed users of GLP-1s, those who've stopped taking the drugs, still report lingering changes in appetite and food preferences. That suggests the market impact could endure longer than the treatment itself. What about the healthcare system? At first glance, you might assume fewer obesity-related conditions would mean less spending. But the picture is more complex. For example, moderate obesity is associated with $1,500 more in annual healthcare costs compared to people with a healthy weight. For severe obesity, that number jumps to $3,000. But, and here's the twist, most healthcare spending happens later in life. Obesity reduces life expectancy by 10 years in younger adults and 5 years in middle age. So if GLP-1s help people live longer, they may actually spend more on healthcare over time. That's why some analysts argue that medtech and healthcare services might not lose out, but rather shift focus to support longer, healthier lives. So how does this all tie into the investment landscape? The opportunity is massive, but so is the complexity. Analysts remain positive on the GLP-1 space overall, but they're urging selectivity. Stocks like Eli Lilly, Chugai, Viking Therapeutics, Zealand Pharma, and Structure Therapeutics are rated overweight due to strong pipelines or differentiated positioning. Novo Nordisk, despite being a category leader, is rated equal weight due to pricing risks and a tougher catalyst path ahead. It's not just about total addressable market, it's about execution, innovation, and timing. Now let's touch on one final but critical variable, pricing. The $150 billion TAM assumes moderate pricing pressure over time. But there are uncertainties. Will increased competition lead to price erosion? Will governments step in with tighter reimbursement controls? Could rebates grow to match those seen in the immunology market, another $100 billion plus therapeutic area? These are real risks, but they're factored into the current base case, and alternative scenarios like a $100 billion market are also modeled for downside protection. In the end, we may be witnessing one of the most important healthcare shifts in a generation. A new drug class that not only reshapes a $150 billion market, but also impacts what we eat, how we age, and what we value as consumers and patients. Whether you're a biotech investor, a food executive, or just someone watching this space with curiosity, GLP-1s are no longer just a story about weight. They're about longevity, economics, and lifestyle. And we're only at the beginning. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the future of health, tech, and investing. Thanks for watching.